Jason Kessler is the white nationalist who decided to organize the hate rally that took place in Charlottesville, Virginia. Now, he has let Fox News know that he's had to go into hiding because he has gotten so many death threats. Now, it's unsurprising that he'd get death threats. Death threats are just a common part of society now. And it is fair to assume that some of those death threats come from those on the left. And I also want to be fair to him. He did get attacked when he tried to hold a press conference after the violence in Charlottesville, Virginia. And that did not go well. In fact, we have video from that.
Come on, come on. Let's go, come on.
Her name was Heather, sir. Her name was Heather, Jason. Her blood is on your hands. Her blood is on your hood. Jason, what do you have to say for yourself?
Give me a little space. Give me space for this guy.
Jason, what did you try to tell the crowd today?
So this goes in a lot of directions. So first, of course, it's hard not to be amused by people who are in favor of white power running from
of course, from a band of white people there.
From a press conference that they organized. Doesn't look very powerful. That's okay. But overall, the main thing about attacking him or threatening him is don't do it. Don't sink to their level. You don't need to do it. The violence is their calling card, not our calling card. So I think they should have let him finish that press conference. I'm not afraid of white nationalist ideas. I think they sound preposterous. And we're going to give you some of Kessler's quotes here in a second, and we'll shred those. But that's in the battlefield of ideas. And threatening, look, man, you don't know where the threatening leads. Don't do it. And you start with Kessler, I don't know where it ends. And you shouldn't start with Kessler, let alone wherever it ends. So that's my strong opinion on that issue.
Yeah.
And it's easy to say, oh, but they're white nationalists. Of course, I know, we fight white nationalists every single day here on the show. But when you stoop to their tactics, it doesn't help anybody.
And when you get physical with them, when you get violent with them, you are essentially giving them a gift, right?
Yeah, they love it. Then they love being victims.
But you can shout them down.
Shout them down, right? Please practice your First Amendment right and let them know what you think, but don't get physical.
Yeah, and by the way, in shouting them down, I also want to be clear about that. Within the context of a Nazi rally, right? You get to have speech against them.
Right.
They have freedom of speech, you have freedom of speech. Within the context of an organized speech, I'd let any speaker speak. Again, look this thing we showed yesterday in Seattle. Well, these alt-right guys, we're gonna bring down Lenin's statue in Seattle. And since nobody paid him any mind, 7 dudes showed up. When you just let them spout their nonsense, it's incredibly ineffectual.
By the way, that's what usually happens. That's what happened in Charlottesville. Charlottesville has had a rally once a month since May, at least once a month since May, since they announced that the Lee statue was coming down. It's only when they sort of made this huge convocation of white people, of haters, come there and have this kind of big group that this sort of thing happened. People kind of ignored them in Charlottesville at these small rallies. We didn't even know they were happening.
Right.
And so that's an effective thing to do, is to just let them scream in a vacuum.
Let them scream in the darkness. Anyway,
All
yes.
right, so let's get to the good parts of the story. So as I mentioned, Kessler let Fox News know that he's afraid for his safety, and so he's gone into hiding. And so again, while I certainly agree that there might be those on the left who are threatening him, there are also those on the far right who are also threatening him, which amazes me because they think he's part of some sort of false flag conspiracy and that he's actually a liberal who's just trying to make the white supremacists look bad. I'm not kidding, it's amazing. Now first, let's start with his own conspiracies, okay? Kessler had tweeted the following: "What occurred in Charlottesville was a conspiracy to violate my civil rights in violation of a federal court judge's order."
Now, the irony of that is so thick, it's just awesome. It's one of the best ironies I've ever seen. Now, of course, African Americans shouldn't have their civil rights, but you're violating my civil rights to say that, how dare you? Their lack of empathy is stunning. And the fact that they can't even see it shows also their lack of intellect.
Now, here's the super interesting part, okay? Pro-Trump far-right commenters are now trying to distance themselves from Kessler in the wake of the deadly Charlottesville riots, claiming that he was paid by the liberal philanthropist George Soros to invite several neo-Nazi and KKK groups to smear everyone attending, okay? So let me give you, this is amazing. Let me give you an actual quote from a far-right Trump supporter in one of these Trump Reddit forums or whatever, threads. He says, just did some digging and I found out that this little fuck was a leftist operative until when? You guessed it, November 2016. Oh my gosh, okay. Unite the Right is a Soros-funded honeypot psyop that employs the Pied Piper strategy to damage the Republican brand by insinuating that Antifa goons disguised as Nazis represent the views of the entire right wing in America.
Okay, so wait. All those guys on tape who said, chanted blood and soil, the Jews will not replace us, and then later made videos crying about how the police are gonna get them, and said to commentators on the scene, we're gonna go get the Jew lovers. They were all actors, and by the way, stunningly good actors.
Great actors hired by, nobody loves a Nazi more than George Soros, so he's just gonna pay as much as he can to get one out there.
And I mean, the reason Michael jokes about that is because George Soros has helped fund movements to help Holocaust survivors. I mean, he is nothing like what the right says.
Right.
He also fought communism and helped to topple communism in Eastern Europe.
Right.
So he's a huge capitalist. He's a giant financial guru, right? And one of the top financial guys in the world, maybe in the history of the world.
Yeah.
He's deep capitalist, but they're like, oh, there's leftists who loves the Nazis. It's insanity. So no. The left didn't have to make you look bad. You look bad, you do a good enough job of that on your own. That was your guys who showed up in your uniforms with the khakis and the white shirts and held the torches. So now these hilarious excuse of like, I think it was like a false flag, man.
No, but honestly, okay, so now they're angry. The far right Trump supporters hate Kessler. They think he's part of some conspiracy. And it made me realize something. Look, we can sit here and criticize what's going on with the right wing all we want, but it's not gonna be as effective as the right wing eating one another. And that's what's happening right now. Like, they are just destroying one another, right? And so that party's imploding. That part of the electorate is imploding, and it's delicious.
And it's a microcosm of the White House. I mean, that's with the sort of the punctuation you can put on this day of all days. Is they're eating each other there too. So why not eat each other in the streets and eat each other at the White House?
And it makes perfect sense on the day that Steve Bannon has left the White House, and Scaramucci famously said of him that he likes to suck his own cock. Speaking of eating each other. TYT membership gets you commercial-free Young Turks. Download it, stream it, podcast it, get all the network shows, and support independent media. TYTnetwork.com/join.